Well, here's a quick tip on how to draw a starry sky in a digital app. Now, I'm using Procreate, but you can use any digital app, and this technique should work in almost any of them because they all have the ability to allow you to select and rotate and move things around. So this technique is not new to me. It's not something I developed. I learned it from really two different online teachers. One is called Art with Flow, and the other is James Julier, Julier. And I learned it from both of those. Each has their own take on it, and I'm going to kind of add some of my own little twists to it. So the first thing I want to do is get a black field here. So I'm just going to come up here and touch this dot with my pencil, and I'm going to bring it down, and that's going to turn this nice and black so I can put some stars in. Now remember, things are going to be different between different apps, so what I'm doing here may not follow exactly. You'll have to figure out, if you're not using Procreate, what your app does, whether it's Art Rage or I'm not going to go through all of them, but there are a bunch of different apps that you can use, and you should be able to figure out a similar process. So first thing is I want to add some stars. So I'm going to come in here to my brushes, and I've got a whole bunch of different brushes, but what I like to do for doing stars in Procreate is go down to Luminance, and there are a number of different choices, but I like the light pen because what the light pen is going to do is it's going to give me, I got to change away from black because black won't work very well, but if I go with just a straight white, it gives kind of a bright, glowing feel. Now I don't want my stars to be that big, so I'm not going to stick with that, but that's one of the reasons I like the light pen, because it does give me that glowing effect. Now, I don't want pure white. If you go up and you go outside at night and look at the stars, you almost never see them pure white. They're either going to be kind of a bluish color, sometimes a little bit of red or orange. So I like mine to be just a little bit blue. Okay, and let's see what that looks like. And I'm just gonna, I still like a little bit more blue in there, so let's, and I don't know how well this color is going to show up in the video. It still looks pretty white to me, but that'll work for our demonstration. Okay, so now the biggest problem with drawing stars is, we end up, it just doesn't look realistic. If you go outside and you try to look at stars, it's just not going to look. It's not going to look right when you try to draw them yourself. It just almost always looks like the stars have been drawn. And what we want is to create the kind of effect that you see in the sky, which is much more of a random-looking arrangement. So how do we do that? Well, first I'm going to shrink my brush down because it's pretty big, and I'm going to turn the opacity down. That just means it's not going to be quite as bright as it was. And then what I'm going to do is let's make sure I've got a layer working here. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a new layer. Now I'm drawing on top of that first one, and I'm going to tap in some stars. So let's get that little window closed there. And I'm going to tap in, and when you're using a stylus, you want to be really careful with how you tap in the stars, because if you do it too hard, then you end up drawing a comet and not a star. Now, if you want to draw a comet, that's perfect. But see, especially as you get older like I am, then your hand isn't near as steady. I'm actually going to turn that opacity back up so these stars show up better. If I was doing a digital painting, I would make it dimmer, but I want you to be able to see what I'm doing. So I'm going to just throw in some stars. I'm not worrying too much. I'm not trying to create any kind of pattern. I'm not trying to draw a a constellation that you might see, you can do that. But right now, I just want to get a pattern of stars. Again, if you go outside and look, you will see some are brighter than others. So sometimes I'm tapping a little bit harder. Now I'm using an Apple Pencil, and so that gives me pressure control. If you're using just a regular stylus, that you won't have that, at least on an iPad. But if you do have an iPad and an Apple Pencil, you can get pressure control. Okay, so I'm basically working to get about a fourth of the page here. And again, now, if I were to just do this as my picture, you'd say, wow, that looks drawn. And you would be right. That's really what it looks like. Now, there's a little trick with Procreate. If you just take 3 fingers and swipe them, you bring up a copy window. And then again, and this time I'm going to paste. Okay, so now I have a copy of that first. Now, here's the trick. What I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate it. Now I can rotate it all the way around, which actually in Procreate I can also just come down here and flip vertical, and I can also flip horizontal. So what that does immediately is that gives me much more of a random look. Okay, so I like that, and I'm going to stick with that for now, and I'm going to hit this button up here, which is going to deselect it. So now, if you come up here, you'll notice it added that extra bit of stars, that copied bit, in as an inserted image, so it's an extra layer now. Now I can merge those together, and I will eventually, but right now I want to leave them like they are. And I'm going to paste one more time. And again, it's that same group of stars, but this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of change the angle a little bit, and I'm going to shrink it down. Okay, so at certain points here, it's going to look like there are more stars than others. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to paste that again. Okay, now it's just copied and pasted that little section there. So I'm going to move that down here. And I'm going to change the angle again a little bit. And maybe make it a little bit bigger. Okay, and then I'm going to turn off the transform, or the select and transform. I'm going to copy one more time. And I'm going to paste again. And now I've got that same square. And I'm going to rotate it again. This time I'm going to move it up to this corner. I'm going to pull it out this time. And the whole time I'm doing this the idea is to create more of a feel of randomness. And let's do one more copy. And one more paste. Whoops. Okay, and let's bring it down to this corner now. Let's rotate. I'm going to go ahead and flip this vertically and horizontally. I'm going to pull it down a little bit. Okay, now you can keep doing this, but you get the idea. And now I've got something that looks a lot more like what you would see in a night sky. Now, how do I fill up the entire painting? Well, what I can do is I come back here, and now you see all these layers I've got. One thing I want to do before I do too much else is I want to adjust the opacity on some of these. And that's going to, because again, if you go outside, you'll see not all stars are the same brightness. So I'm going to come over here, and you can again do this in virtually any good digital app. And I'm going to just turn down the opacity on a few of these layers, not all of them. Some of them I want to keep about the same color. But I want a variation in brightness. Okay, so now I've got a little variety and brightness here. What I can do, there are different ways to do it, but I'm going to just merge down, and this isn't the most efficient way. Oops, didn't want to do that, hit the wrong one. Merge down, merge down, merge down, merge down. Okay, they're all on one layer now. So now what I can do is, if I do my copy again, now it's going to copy all of those stars, and I can paste. Okay, now I've got a little bit extra here, but the way to avoid that, let me show you, is I come over here to the select tool, that's that S looking logo there, and I choose rectangle. Then I can just select the stars I want to select. Okay, so I can go in here and I can do that. Oops, well, let's see. And then I hit transform, which is the arrow, and that's gonna let me move that around now. Okay, so what I want to do is flip horizontal again, and I'm going to move that all the way over here. And then I'm going to turn that off. I'm going to paste one more time. Okay, this time I've got it all the way over here. I'm going to just bring that out. Now you notice here I've got a really cool, interesting pattern, but I don't really want that, so I'm going to flip vertical, and I'm going to flip horizontal, and I think I'm actually going to rotate this a bit. And I'm going to leave it there. Now you notice the stars are a lot thicker in that little area. So, you know, you're going to want to keep working and working and working, but eventually the more you copy and paste and rotate, the more you can fill your night sky up with realistic looking stars. Now if I were going to spend more time, I might have actually gone in and, for example, let's select one of these layers here. I'm just going to take this top one since that's already selected, and I'm going to do what's called an alpha lock, which means I'm going to be able to come in and I'm going to be able to color, but I'm only going to color the stars that were selected. So let's say I wanted a different color. I'm going to come in and get my airbrush here. Let's see, I want my soft brush, and I want it set fairly large and opacity way down. And let's go ahead and get some of these blue stars here. So now I'm going to come in and I'm going to just bring this through, and maybe to make it show up a little bit, I'm going to turn some of these kind of more of a yellowish, bright yellow star. And maybe even a little orange. And so there you are. I'm not going to finish the page out, but that's how you create a star field in digital art that looks more random and realistic than if you just go ... throughout the entire page. Hope this has been helpful.